Hi everyone and welcome to another live Q&A. My name is Cedric Marin. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer at Holt Immigration Law, and today we're going to chat about everything you need to know to immigrate to Canada. Now, keep in mind, guys, as usual, this is just legal information, so there's no legal advice, right? So I don't know all the intricate details about how you came to Canada, why you're coming to Canada, what's really going on in your application, but today, what I'm going to try to do is really help you. So help people who want to immigrate to Canada and want to know a little bit more about how to do that. So I'm always going to try to flip back here and really provide you with the information on the IRCC webpage. Let's actually get that linked up right now. Um, Check processing times. This is always fun. So we just give I just give legal information, right? Obviously, if you want legal advice, you can head on over to our website, Holt Immigration Law, here at the very top. Go ahead and speak with a lawyer, and then when you scroll here at the bottom, you can find me. So I usually deal with rejected applications, judicial reviews, reconsiderations. I do a lot of individual immigration as well, so express entry, work permits, study permits. But recently, there is tons of rejections for post-graduation work permits, the 18 months extension, right? So people who knew they didn't qualify, who applied to it and hoped that they would squeeze by, those are getting rejected, and that's okay, right? Uh, I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's not ideal, but it was expected if you applied and you aren't eligible. But we have a lot of people as well who are being rejected, saying, "Oh, you don't have an LMIA rejected." It's like, wait a second, 18-month extension, there was no LMIA, right? So then we explore, okay, should we do judicial reviews? Should we go through reconsideration? How can we get this person back on track? But fortunately, right, because of the delays at IRCC, sometimes it means not being able to work for a period of time. But in any event, that's who I am. That's what we're going to do today. Legal information. And another question is going to come up about what's going on with express entries. So you know what? Let's just wait till we get there because it's for sure going to happen. So first question right off the bat, Shida, thank you so much. Hope you're well. So do I need to include high school info under education section of Express Entry profile, or is it okay to include only post-secondary bachelor's and master's? So excellent question. And the answer to your question is going to be, you're going to put the highest level of education inside your education history. And the reason why is because you're not going to get points for anything else, right? So if you have a master's, so here you say I have a master's in Canada, we're only going to put the master's in Canada in the education history. That's confirmed here, talking about the education parts. This is the completeness check and proof of studies. So here we're going to talk about having an ECA or Canadian degree. So you have a master's, so we're good. And then we're going to talk about the proof. Proof. So you're going to want to have your diploma, but also your transcripts. And on your transcripts, it must say that you were actually awarded the master's. So super important. And so institutions where they complete their highest degree, right? So you're only going to get points for the highest degree. So you're only going to claim the highest one. Now, once you get your ITA, fingers crossed, there's going to be a new section is going to open up called personal activities or personal history. And then in that section, you have to declare everything going back 10 years. So then you would declare, yeah, if you did like a bachelor's and you did a master's, that's where you would declare. All right, NOC requires a high school certificate. Was wondering whether I could put the date that I got my master's in Canada for the section requiring when I qualified for the NOC. Yeah, so the question about qualifying for the NOC is really about like the federal skilled trades. You can put the date of high school, you can put the date of your bachelor's, the master's date. What they want to know is like, when were you eligible to start working in this NOC? And to be honest, it doesn't really matter for FSW or CC. Now we want to be honest, right? So when you could qualify for this job, if it was high school, it's high school. There's again, this is just general information. I don't know your specific case, but generally we put the date of the degree someone graduated and the date that they started, and they were able to then start working later once they had this degree, right? So there we go. First question, express entry. Well, guys, I mean, like a little bit heartbroken here. Like I know so many people. I spoke with someone today that had a score of like 488 and like was really hoping to get an express entry draw. 488 being CEC. So you can see here how they do like one draw on Wednesdays, they do a second draw on Thursdays. So are they starting something new? Like, could we see CEC today? listen, guys. I'm repeating myself. I've said this on previous podcasts and lives. There is no requirement to have draws. There's none. IRCC could take tomorrow. They could take 10,000 people. They could take, they could take 5,000 people. They could take just those in the provincial nominee class. There's no actual rules saying how they have to do the draws. But what we do know is that they have the immigration levels plan, and we know that in this year for CEC, FSW, PNP, they want to take their target is 82,000. So if we took this target as 82,000, and we go back here to look at the draws, we know that they're going to have to start taking some of these CEC candidates if they want to hit their goal of 82,000. Because right now they only have about 10,000, 15,000. And keep in mind that these are invitation issues. Now they do reject applications, right? But they have to continue doing draws. They have to continue taking people, and we're going to see here. If you're interested in coming to Canada, it's only going to go up, right? The amount of people that are going to be taken from Express Entry is only going to go up. In fact, a huge increase in 2024 of about 30,000 people through Express Entry. So this tells us the score is going to drop. It tells us that they have more demand, right? So the score is going to drop. But yeah, I mean, listen, we don't know. That's the honest answer, is that no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. No one knows when CC is going to come out. But we can kind of predict by looking at the immigration levels plan, past draw, but kind of uncharted territory now. But I really hope that, that we go back to normal draws. Just whoever has the highest score, just come on in. Come to Canada, right? But we'll see. We'll see what actually happens. Leo says, "Hi Cedric. Hope you're doing well. I am. Sorry, I need to drink water, or else my throat is going to go dry. And I have a question. After receiving eCorp, so the e-confirmation of permanent residence, so they're inside Canada, and after they ask for photograph and address, what can we include Montreal address to send PR card to? I mean, the whole purpose of Express Entry is being outside Quebec. Have to be outside Quebec. Don't get your PR and then move to Quebec the next week, right? Your intention to reside is in your application. It's going to be outside Quebec. I really would avoid that. Now, this being said, what is your situation? Why is it going to Quebec? Is it a family member's house? But I generally would avoid to live outside Quebec if you apply for Express Entry to truly live outside Quebec. So don't go to Ottawa for a week, or a few months to do your Express Entry and then move back to Quebec. I wouldn't recommend that. I don't know. It just makes me uneasy because this program is exclusively for outside Quebec. Why would you put a Quebec address? Really though, sorry, unconclusive. Just giving you just legal information, right? We know that it's Express Entry is outside Quebec, and now you're asking, okay, can I put the Quebec address? I don't know, man. I wouldn't risk it for the biscuit, as they say. All right, Eric, I'm writing from Cameroon. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for letting me know where you're joining us from. All right, Jerome says, "Hi, Cedric. For immigrants who have family members in Canada, citizens, don't want to provide specific details to help accomplish 5645. Is there a workaround to not affect the application?" Interesting. I mean, so the forms, the profiles, the applications are very rigid, right? It's like you need to provide this, and I think any time that we go outside of exactly what IRCC is asking for, I think it's a good idea to have a letter of explanation, right? So a letter of explanation would be, you could put all the information So obviously, their name, they're inside Canada. You might know that they're in Ontario or Alberta. So you put all the information, and then I would have a letter of explanation saying, listen, I don't know where my sibling is, or I don't know their current status. We lost touch, but I think they're inside Canada. Here's all the information that I know about them. And then, it's up to IRCC really to contact you to look into this further, right? If they have an issue, but I would definitely, explain in a letter of explanation what is going on and why you cannot fully complete the form, right? And now I'm not sure if Jerome, if you're asking this, but as you may know, you can get points for Express Entry for family members inside Canada, right? So this raises this whole other issue of whether or not you're able to claim the points for family member, but you're not asking that, and that can be a little more complicated. So we're just going to avoid that. But we could avoid it, but here we go. So for those, right? So proof of relationship. This is really what they want, right? They want documentation that they're Canadian citizen or PR, that they reside inside Canada, right? The proof of the relationship. So your birth certificate, their birth certificate. And to be honest, I think that if you're not in touch with them, or they don't want to provide this information, I think it could be a little bit tricky. But really, you have two options, right? You don't claim the points for Canadian Canadian sibling and whatnot, or PR, and you wait until the score drops, or you could submit it with a letter of explanation explaining what is happening and why you can't meet these requirements, right? But again, this is just general information about ifs and buts. Please book a consult if you want us to actually go through your situation, help you submit your express entry profile or even review your letter of All right, Samir says, hi, applied for outside Canada, family sponsorship, passed medical last July. Still haven't heard anything. Should I be worried? It will be a year since I applied in March. Now, so outside Canada is still taking a little bit of time compared to the inside Canada class, but we can take a look here at the family sponsorship. Now, you probably already did this, but let's take a look here. So right now they're saying 16 months. And yeah, I think after medicals, you expect things to move quicker. Talking about 30, 60, 90 days. This being said, right, it could be held up on the background check, right? So if they have any reason to have a lengthier background check, it could be held up on background check. But really, like in our practice, we have people getting CC ETAs like in like 3 months, and it's like fantastic. It's super quick, right? Really complete application, no back and forth, no procedural fairness, no missing documents. But online it still says 16 months, right? So depending on where you applied and your personal circumstances, how complete the application is can have an impact on the processing. So Samir, hard to say. You could request the GCMS notes, right, to know exactly what's going on. If you're inside Canada, or if you're a Canadian, or if you have someone who's a Canadian citizen, they can request it on your behalf. It's $5. Someone as well do it to find out. It's taking a long time, but I mean that's really all you can do. You're within processing time technically. You could look at a writ of mandamus, but it hasn't really been that long, all things considered. I know it's been almost a year, but it hasn't been really that long. So there we have it. All right, it says, please have misrepresentation problem to the United States. I've been admitted and I need study permit to study. Can it be possible? Yeah, it's possible. Is your application going to be scrutinized by Canadian immigration authorities? Absolutely. And why is there the misrepresentation, right? So if if it's for criminality you didn't disclose or different issues, it could lead to inside Canada also being causing issues in inadmissibility, right? But yeah, like just because you've been found inadmissible or you found misrepresented in another country doesn't necessarily mean that you same is going to apply to Canada, right? But Canada and US have information sharing. You can read about that online. So pretty much the immigration officers can look at pretty much anything you've already submitted in the United States. So they're definitely going to scrutinize your application, scrutinize it in detail, but they can't just be like, okay, misrepresentation in the United States, banned from Canada at the end. It's not how it works. But yeah, I mean, you definitely want to, probably have someone, a lawyer, look over the application, help you explain kind of what's been going on to put really your best foot forward. Lima, sound is cutting. Yeah, I've been investigating really how to fix this, and there's some sound suppression somewhere on my computer, and I can't figure out how to get rid of it. But thank you. I'm going to continue looking into this, Lima. And nice to see you again. Always joining us, Lima. Ashitosh, how are you? Hi, Cedric. Receiving ITA. What employment documents could be submitted if I haven't resigned? Say reference letter to whoever certificate mentioning job. Yeah, I mean that's exactly it, right? In fact, if you haven't resigned, you're just going to put here like the job status. You're going to put current job, right? And it's a reference letter, but they can write to IRCC, right? So completeness check. And guys, like if you're listening right now, like please look at this completeness check document. Like I'd say that about half of my rejected express entry applications, so people who come to me, like I haven't touched the file, people come to me once they've been rejected, and we go through their profile, and this is the number one reason why applications are rejected. And it's the number one thing that we look at in terms of supporting documents when we work with our clients for express entry. It's so specific, right? So here is what the reference letter needs to say, right? So here you would put for your current job status, your employer would just write current, and super important, right? But duties and responsibilities, right? So this is going to be super key. So I think this question usually comes up. People say like, what's my NOC? How do I write the NOC? So let's just go through this together. So all right, so this is the National Occupation Classification. Now make sure that we click here 2021, right? It's the most recent version. And a job title, you know what? We're going to put lawyer. Let's see what the lawyer is. I actually haven't done this. So lawyer is going to be a tier 1. Fantastic. So I could qualify for express entry. So that's pretty great. Let's take a look here. So this doesn't say anywhere, but this is what they mean by lead statement. So if we go back here to the talking about duties and responsibilities, right? Go through the ministerial instructions I can show you, but it just says lead statement and main duties. It doesn't say job description. It doesn't say education. So this is what we want to focus on. So lawyers in Notary Quebec advise clients on legal matters. Yep, that's me. Represent clients before administrative tribunals. Yep, that's me. Draw up legal documents such as contracts and wills. I don't do contracts and wills, but I do immigration law. Lawyers also plead cases. Yeah, I do that in federal court. Represent clients before tribunals. Yep, that's me. Conduct prosecution in court of law. I don't conduct prosecution. That's fine, right? I still meet, almost all of this here. Lawyers are employed in law firms. Yep, and here we go. So then we're talking about Quebec. Articling students are included. All right, so this is a job title. So I'm lawyer. Well, technically immigration lawyer, but yeah, it fits. But again, title is not that important. We're really focusing on lead statement, main duties. All right, let's move on here. Main duties. All right, so some or all. And what they mean by some or all is they really mean about 75%. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I think here we're talking about 7 out of 8. I think 6 out of 8 is going to be too low. So 7 out of 8 here. And we're actually going to ignore these that say May. These are not relevant. This is May, right? So out of here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm probably going to need to meet all of them, I think. Out of 6 out of 6. So yeah, I advise clients, right? So you're not going to copy paste this. You're not just going to take this and just copy paste it and just put inside a reference letter. But what you're going to do is you're going to say like, I advise clients on immigration matters, and I talk about their legal rights, such as procedural fairness letters, right? The avoiding misrepresentations, being honest, and all matters related to the law. Yeah, so I do that. I do legal research for legal precedents and gather evidence. Yeah, I mean, we obviously do that, both with litigation, but also just trying to understand more about your case. So anyway, so this is how we'd go forward to kind of look at the NOC, but this is called the main duties, and make sure that you like elaborate on this in your reference letter. Like it could be 2 or 3 pages. Like it's fine. Just make sure that you definitely meet these statements. And what's helpful sometimes is going here at the bottom. Again, we don't care about education. We don't care about additional information. We care about lead statement and main duties. Now, obviously, if your title is like kindergarten teacher and you're trying to tell them that you're a lawyer, they might be like, what is going on? Or vice versa, right? So sometimes you might have to have your letter of explanation to explain. Say they call me the kindergarten because I need to be approachable for kids, but in reality, I'm a lawyer. Like again, I'm just making it up here, but yeah, if there's like some big discrepancies, you might want to explain it, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily what they're. Just quickly here, if we look at the major group, so this is really helpful because it's going to break down all the NOCs. So kind of going through this and we're not sure, right? We can go through this and just take out the 41, but we know it was 41, and then we can look at kind of similar occupations. So we have occupations in law, and now we have judges and lawyers, and this is the only 2. So kind of boring, but let's look at some different ones, right? So home care provider, this could be a tier 4, but it kind of help us look and say, okay, which one are we actually in terms of the NOC, right? So take a look at this, and then you can take a look in more detail and break it down and see the unit group profile and whatnot. But yeah, anyways, kind of dug into deep detail here. But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, letter of reference, great. If you have pay stubs, great. If you have a contract, fantastic. If you have an employment, like a reference letter on top of that, that means everything I talked about. Yeah, for sure. Good morning. Have you heard anyone getting their open work permit under the 18-month extension? Yeah, I mean, I do. Yeah, I have clients that have helped out for express entry that received it a month ago or so. I've had a handful of refusals, people coming to me with refusals. So there's refusals, there's also people being accepted. So yeah, I mean, they're starting to trickle out, to be honest, Armir. All right, Lima, we don't get an answer about post-graduation extension after work authorization expires in May. What should we do? Quit our job? I really hope this doesn't happen, guys. And Lima, I we'll see what happens, because like when they announced the policy, they were like, we're going to decide everything by May 31st. And everyone was like, what? Right? Because we know IRCC is a little bit slow, but fingers crossed. And Lima, if it's okay with you, I think we're just going to wait till we get there. I mean, we're talking about maintain status. Maybe if they're going to come out with another policy, are they really going to process pre-application before. Oof. Listen, let's just wait till we get there. I'm sorry, Lima, but I don't want to like speculate or start like talking about ifs and buts, and then it's just it's all fixed, right? Either by a new policy or because they actually processed everything. So I think we should just wait till. Amongst us says, how long does it take for LMIE-based job offer approved for a nurse? Amongst us, it really depends. Is it going to be inside or outside Canada? You can take a look at the. You can take. So LMIAs are typically done about. I think it depends, but typically it's like 30 or 60 days from ESDC. And then once you have the LMIE, you're going to go on to you're going to go on to submit an application, and it really depends if you're applying from inside or outside Canada, right? For the LMIA. And not everyone can apply from inside Canada, right? There's only some people who can apply, but we're not going to go into that. But yeah, take a look at the page here. If I'm in touch with my relatives and I pass eligibility without them for FSP, how should I address that in letter of explanation? So we're talking about not in touch because you can't fill out the forms about who they are, or not in touch because you're claiming points for Canadian citizen and PR, right? So a little bit different, but yeah, letter of explanation for sure as to why you don't have the complete information, or why did you put January 1st for everyone, January 1st, 2020 for the date of birth, because you kind of have to complete it, right? But so yeah, so definitely explain a letter of explanation. It's not ideal, but it's also it's not ideal. Ideally, you'd have a very clean, complete application, right? But this being said, it happens, and yeah, letter of explanation is definitely going to be the way to go. All right, Muzamil, how are you? Hi, could a person on closed work permit in Canada work remotely for an employer who's outside Canada at the same time? Employer outside has no link with Canada. So interesting question. So you're asking some interesting questions here. So on a closed work permit, you're going to have a location and most likely you can have an employer and most likely a location where you're allowed to work from, right? And it's super important to respect that. But as you may know, right, what is considered as a definition of work is the definition of work. I'm just trying to find it right now. Excludes if you telework. So if you telework for a non-Canadian company that's not paid in Canadian dollars, it's not considered work, right? So I don't want to say yes or no. What I want to do is actually find you the definition, and then you, if you want, can make the decision or book a consult and can chat about it more. Definitions, and let's go to work, and let's pop this up, right? So it's just talking with somebody else today in a consult, and they're like, yeah, like unfortunately they can't work for the next like 4 or 5 months. But what can you do in the meanwhile, right? So take a look here, right? So what is work, and then what is not work, and what is not work is long distance work done by temporary resident whose employer is outside Canada and who is remunerated from outside Canada. So I'll leave you with that. Now keep in mind that you might have other obligations with your current company. Whether it's conflict of interest, whether it's confidentiality, whether it's not being allowed to have 2 jobs at the same time, right? I'll let you deal with that, and I'll let you deal with this as well. I'm just providing with the IRCC webpage some legal information, and you can figure out whether or not you can do that. All right, got admission, applying for study permit before post-graduation expires. If I happen to get ITA before decision is made on work permit, can I cancel and apply for bridging open work permit since I got ITA? Yeah, I mean, why not, right? I'm applying for study permit before post-graduation expires. So keep in mind, right, that okay, if I happen to get IT before decision is made on work, do you mean study permit? Before got admission, applying for study permit before post-graduation expires. If I get an ITA before decision is made on work permit. Shida, unfortunately, I don't fully understand your question, but yes, like if you are eligible for the bridging open work permit, right? So you have either a work permit, you're under maintained status, or you're able to restore to a work permit, and you've actually applied for express entry. So not a profile, not an ITA, but actually applied, and you have an acknowledgement of receipt, and you meet the eligibility for bridging open work permit. You could apply for the bridging open work permit, and then make a web form to cancel the study permit, and wait until you get your PR to benefit from lower study permit rates, from lower tuition rates, right, inside Canada as a PR. I mean, yeah, it could work. Really depends on how we execute this. All right, smile, please. There we go. Says Hi, would a work experience gain abroad count if it was not done under work permit? Interesting. Interesting. I don't think I've ever had this happen. I mean, we can go find out. Let's go find out. By find out, I mean show you what IRCC says, and you can take it from there, right? So we're talking about foreign work experience. So let's go take a look here. So for foreign work experience, you get points based on combination of language and work experience. And for work experience, so for sections 23 and 24, is that acquired into one of the tiers, right? So only tier 1, 2, 3 count. It's just a full time, right? So or the full time equivalent of part time work, right? So 30 hours a week, or like 2 jobs, 15 plus 15. If you have like 40 hours a week, it's still capped at 30, right? Just keep that in mind. 1,560 hours over 52 weeks is what they mean by 1 year. Is acquired within the 10-year, okay. Is remunerated by wages or commission. So probably an important question. Were you paid? Then you must have talked about this earlier. You must have the lead statement and the main duties. Full-time work consists of at least 30 hours per week. We talked about this. Work in excess doesn't count. So interesting question. And to be honest, I think I'd have to look into further research case law, maybe with the federal court, to see how they've interpreted foreign work experience and whether or not you need to have a status. It's an interesting question. That would probably need some more research, but just based on what we saw briefly on the ministerial instructions, right? For Canadian work experience, for sure, you need a valid status. For Canadian experience, 100%. For foreign work experience, doesn't mention it, right? But how have the courts interpreted that, right? Is there other things that I'm not maybe aware in just this 2 minutes of reading? I don't know. Muzamil, thank you so much for the $2.80. I really appreciate it. To go back to your question here, yeah, like this is a tricky situation, and I'm always very cautious of not giving legal advice and saying, yeah, do it or don't do it, right? Because I don't fully understand your situation. Like, I know you're on a closed work permit, and we saw how it's not allowed to count as work, right? Is there anything else in the immigration and refugee protection rules or regulations that I have to consider? Do we have to look into your conditions? Do you have any other conditions on your work permit? Are you allowed to, right, with your employer? Well, it's not strictly immigration law, right? So these are things that we'd have to explore. So I really appreciate the $2.80, and I'm sorry that I can't give you, a more concrete answer, but I just don't want to essentially make a decision that has a huge impact on your life, could possibly get deported from Canada, right? Because I just gave you an overconfident answer in a 30-second live Q&A. So I do apologize if my answer is not. Hardeep Carr says, hello, applied for non-express entry Nova Scotia PR application 25 November 2022 after submitting application. Did not receive any email from IRCC. When can we expect that? Yeah, so you might not get an email. You might actually get it straight inside your account, right? Acknowledgement of receipt inside your account. That's possible. But typically, I think for the PR class non-express entry, about 30 to 60 days. It's getting a little bit long. Maybe able to do a web form, maybe check the application status. But to be honest, I'm not too worried. I think some people during COVID at some point didn't get acknowledgement of receipts for a considerable amount of time. All right. Snow, hi, my wife needs to do the medical test on March 1st for express entry. Right? The profile seems to be halt since submission on 11 December. Will the process be quicker after she clears her medical? Yeah, so if your medicals expire within a year, right, you need to put the date of your medicals inside of your express entry profile. It's going to take your profile out of the pool because you're not eligible, right? Oh no, is that? No, sorry, that's not the case. That's only going to be at the once you get your ITA, right? If you don't have a medical exam, it's going to be can't submit the application. My wife needs another medical test on March 1st. My profile seems to be halt since its submission on December Right. So no, I'm sorry, I don't really fully understand your question, right? So when you create your profile, you get a CRS score, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to be getting PR. It just means you have a CRS score, and then when you get the ITA, right, that's when you can actually complete your profile, provide supporting documents, and apply for permanent residency, right? So your profile could be at a halt maybe because you're ineligible, your CRS score is too low. I don't fully understand what's going on here. The process can be quicker after she clears her medical. Um, like I don't understand what you mean by quicker. Like, do you already have your invitation to apply? You've already submitted your profile, or like you're saying, like, are you gonna get an ITA now, right? I'm sorry, but feel free to re-ask your question. Just know if you're still with us, and we can go from. Leo says for CC applicants, do not need to provide proof of funds, but should include LOE instead. What if some bank uploads bank statements instead of LOE? Does it pass? I mean, sure. I mean, if you do, right? But I mean, you don't have to do your proof of funds, and you also take the risk that what if there's no address on the bank statements, right? What if you've only provided 5 months and a half instead of the 6 months, right? I think I have a blog about proof of funds for PNP, and the way it works is they look at CC, and if you fail CC, then they assess the profile in FSW, right? But if you fail CC, you're probably going to be kicked out of the pool because the score is so high right now, right? If you fail CC, you don't have a keen work experience, your score is going to go under the minimum cutoff, and out you go, right? So it's a little bit tricky, but I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say like do it, right? You don't need to. You take a risk of it being, a junior officer who doesn't know it's under CC. He's like, aha, this person made a mistake, rejected, right? So listen, I would do what IRCC tells us to do, right? I would always follow the instructions. I think they actually have a page here that tells us to have this little letter of explanation for, again, you might have already seen this, but it tells us you do not have to meet the funds requirement if you're invited to apply under CC. Current system currently asks all provide proof of funds. If you don't have it, you must upload a letter explaining that you have been invited under CC. So like that's what I would do. Like there's no need to make it more complicated, right? Take any more risk. I would just follow exactly what IRCC tells us. You're welcome. Listen, yeah, I mean, I hope it was helpful. I think this was the one, Shitosh. I think we talked about, yeah, letter reference. Yeah, I mean, you're most welcome. I mean, it's like the number one reason why people get refused. And if I can help you guys not get refused, let's do it. Leo. Yeah, I know it's not easy, man. Really not easy. Waiting and whatnot. I think a lot of policy changes from IRCC are good. They benefit a lot of people, right? People who could have never became PR, not PRs. People who had 3-year work permits or 1-year work permits and have 2.5, 4 years and a half. So a lot of the policy is good, right? But yes, some people are left behind, if you will. CRS score 411, currently in India, citizen, have submitted a profile in the month of November, but still today haven't received notice of interest in my account. Yeah, so Red Devil, I mean, with 411, to get an ITA, like the score right now is about 480, 490 is what people are looking at for federal skilled worker and even for CEC. So like 411, like even before COVID, like when we take a look here, even before COVID, like your score is really low. Like these are the previous scores before COVID. Still, I mean, some of them are still pretty high. This is 2017. There is some, right? So if you're under federal skilled trades, which I'm assuming you're not, but you see, I mean, like you wouldn't have made the cut before COVID. You're probably not going to make the cut for this year, unfortunately, with Express Entry. You have by notification of interest like a PNP, right? That's completely different going through a PNP and whatnot. But just together going through, this federal skilled trade again, like 411, yeah, it's not like just because you apply for Express Entry doesn't mean that you're going to get an invitation, right? They take the top people every month for the invitation. I don't know if that answers your question. You mean you could wait 10 years with the score at 411. You could wait 6 months if a special program is announced and they want your NOC code. It's really hard to say, but based on the draws and the high scores that we're seeing, I think 411 is going to be quite difficult. And a lot of respect, right? Like I'm just being a lot of honest opinion. I know I know sometimes people don't necessarily, I wish I had a magic wand, right, to help everyone, but with 411, yeah, it's quite low. Currently working with the interim email. Okay, applied for PR after receiving ITA last year. They continue working after May if I apply for bridging work permit. Yeah, so the bridging, I think you're actually out of status right now, right? The email is a interim work authorization, and the interim work authorization is a specific authorization that IRCC gives you to work. It's not a work permit, right? Your status in Canada. This is raising some interesting questions about your status and specifically maintain status if you apply for the bridging. When did your status in Canada expire? It's probably expired at the time that your post-graduation work permit expired, right? And then you've been on this interim work authorization without status inside Canada. We'd have to look into a little bit more detailed for maintained status, but really it only applies if you had a status and you apply before it expires. So if you apply for your bridging open work permit before your post-graduation work permit expired, right? Then we would be under maintained status until the decision back on your bridging open work permit. So, Armin, we talk about the ifs and buts, and if they don't process them by May, what's going to happen and whatnot. But I don't want to get into like speculation. I think that we should wait to see what's going to be happening on your post-graduation work permit and then go from there. Have to do more research to see if you would benefit from maintained status, because to be honest, I'm unsure. It's a really interesting question, but I'm unsure if you would. And the guys, like this is what it is to be an immigration lawyer and try to take questions live and answer them all within 30 seconds to a minute. The truth is, right, we're humans. We don't know everything, and when I don't know the answer to a question, let's just admit it, do some research, look into it, and get back to everyone, right? That's the way that I roll. So Armin, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question in these 30 seconds. All right, UTech says, is there any way I can use my degree in English language as a language test instead of IELTS? No, unfortunately. So we can actually take a look at what IRCC wants for language tests for express entry, right? And so you must prove your language skill by taking an improved language test, right? So your English degree is not going to be an improved language test. And the improved language tests are CELPIP and IELTS. There's another one coming at the end of the year. I think Pearson or something, they announced it. So we're going to see what happens. But you must take a language test. And what you can do is you can take it once and then take it twice and take it 3 times if you want. There's fees, obviously, to pay for these tests. But nothing prevents you from taking the test more than once, and then submitting your best test if it's valid. No, you have to take an improvement. Does collaborative review model only include uploading the papers with us after ITA? If we finish it sooner than expected, do we reserve the right to use the unused time later? Excellent question among us. So I think you're referring to on our website here when we go under our approach. So we've actually changed the way that, join our newsletter. That's cool. This is new. Yeah, I mean, join our newsletters, guys. I've been writing them for a while. Now my colleague Chanel has taken them over. And thank you, Chanel, for doing so. But we've actually changed, the collaborative review model. We call it more direct lawyer to client collaboration. So what we mean by this is that we work one-on-one with you, a lawyer plus the client, no one in between, no clerks, no assistants, no one in between. So we answer all the emails ourselves. We meet with you, and there's no one. We collaborate directly with you. So we expect you to do a first draft of the documents. We'll give you some forms. We'll tell you what we want. We expect you to do a first draft, and then we meet together and actually review the documents, modify them, talk about supporting documents, what needs to be changed, and we essentially meet and review as many times as possible, reasonable times as possible for the reason we're hired. So Express Entry will meet 3, 4, 5 times for 2-hour sessions if we need to. We'll review a profile together, review all the documents. So I think a lot of people, well, not all people, some people like yourself are saying, okay, like I have the ITA, I've already completed the profile. Like, why am I going to pay someone, right? Why would I hire one of you as a lawyer, right? So a lot of the time, we'll review the whole profile A to Z, right? We might, for example, have claimed work experience that we don't have reference letters for, that doesn't bring us, right? That is more than 3 years. We might have education experience where it's putting the education experience when we don't need to. We might have incomplete reference letters, right? We might need to actually reject the ITA and restart and wait until we have the proper documents and the supporting documents to submit the application. Then now we're talking about letters of explanation and whatnot. So just the fact that we have the ITA doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be quicker, right? It's a lot of the work is on supporting documents and making sure that we meet the completeness check. If we finish it sooner than expected, we reserve the right to use the unused time later. So we really charge flat fees for our work, right? So we charge to review the profile, submit it, and whatnot. And this usually takes anywhere between 10 to 20 hours from A to Z. And yes, stuff comes up and whatnot. But listen, amongst us, feel free to write to us, info@holflaw.com. I think we also have the link here at the bottom to speak with us. I have it somewhere, but info@holflaw.com. And we'd love to talk to you more about how we can help you and how we can make this happen for you. All right, Sheeta says, "Sir, I confused you with my question. I just want to know whether I applied for a study permit, I can get an ITA, and then apply for bridging open work permit." Right, so no problem. So bridging open work permit, right, guys? Let's take a look here at the conditions, right? So permanent residence using express entry. So to be eligible, you must live in Canada. Either have a valid work permit, have an expired work permit, but maintain your status as a worker, right? And be eligible to restore your status. So one of these have to apply to you. I think you're under Sheeta, you're under the you're before post-graduation work permit expires. So you have valid work permits. If you get the ITA when you have it, great. If not, you have 90 days after, right, to restore your status and get a work permit. If you apply for a study permit, I don't think you're going to benefit from maintained status. Maintained status, IRCC. Let's take a look here. Don't think you're going to maintain from status because it only applies if we have you're applying to extend your status. So you have your status as a worker and you're applying to extend it as a worker, right? It doesn't necessarily work in the case of second application during processing. That's not us. Travel outside Canada. You can only take a look at the law. This could be helpful. This is some of the research that we do, right? More specific on if timber resident has applied for an extension of the period authorized to and decision has not been made on the application. Time to extend the status, the period is extended until the day which the decision is made. Yeah, Sheeta, I'm sorry. I think I'd have to look into this a little bit more closely to see. I think it's really to extend your status. It's a good question. Listen, I'll put in the comments below. I'll ask my colleagues. I think it would only apply. You have a work permit, you apply to extend your work permit before it expires. You continue to have the same conditions as your previous work permit, as opposed to going from work permit and then applying for a study permit, whether or not you get maintained, right? Are you really extending your existing status in Canada, or are you really applying for a new status, right? The status being that of a student. So I'd have to be honest, look into more detail, guys. And we don't always know all the answers in these few minutes. And it could take half an hour, but I don't think it'd be very kind for others. So listen, inconclusive. I'm sorry, Sheeta, but I will follow up with you in the comments. Give me a few days, and I'll do my best to go back. Work experience on study permit. Will the federal court accept it? Can you please confirm? I don't think there's any ambiguity here about this. Like you can't, like, work experience as a student inside Canada does not count as Canadian work experience. There's no federal court that just is different. Like there might be federal court helps specify, like, what did he mean by work experience? Maybe what do they mean by this requirement, right? How does it apply to various cases? But I mean, I think it's pretty black on white in terms of Canadian work experience. We'll take a look here, right? So the minister, right, who's given the by law, by statute, given the power to make ministerial instructions, has said that work experience acquired as a full-time study, in full-time study is not included in the calculating period for work experience. Like it's black on white. Judges don't just say, nope, we don't agree with the minister, right? That's not necessarily how it works. So work experience on a study permit, there's a very high chance that it's not going to be accepted for Canadian work experience. Federal skilled worker is different. There isn't this requirement of federal skilled worker, just for Canadian work experience. So here's legal information that tells us, and your case might be different, but like here it is, right? All right, Snow. Take a look at this again. So received ITA, cleared my medicals, submitted an application. Okay, so you submitted the application. Wife was called for another medical on March. I'm asking my profile is not updated due to my wife. Yeah, 100%. Sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah, so like they really go by stages, right? The first stage, eligibility. There's no reference letter, there's no passport. Boom, rejected on eligibility, right? On the R11.2 on the completeness check. All right, next step, do they have medicals, right? So now you're at the medical step. You're only going to move down the steps once you have the medicals. So yes, most likely based on our experience, we have based on our experience, like we know they go from A to Z, and yes, your application could very well be held up at the medical stage for sure. For PNP, yeah, good luck. I mean, it's they are tough, but again, like just because you meet the minimum eligibility for PNP programs doesn't mean that your knock's going to be called. Doesn't mean that you have a high enough score to proceed with it, right? This is just really here we're just really talking about there's different ways, different PNPs that calculate scores and whatnot, but just because you meet the minimum eligibility doesn't mean you're going to. Amir, thanks so much. My fingers crossed for fast processing of my work permit applications before the end of May. Yeah, fingers crossed as well. Sam says, hi Cedric, thanks for your advice. Oh no, advice. Legal information. I mean, I haven't told anyone what to do, right? I've just always, that's what IRCC says, and this is what you should look at. No advice. It's your first question, Sam. I think it's your first question. So, all right, no advice, Sam. I'll let you know if I receive an ITA. Yeah, I mean, please do, Sam. Let us know. We'd love to help you with it. I mean, we have quite a bit of experience with Express Entry. I think we submit two, 3, or 4 a week. So we do have quite a bit of experience. So please do feel free to reach out, review your documents, to go through, make sure we meet the requirement. How do I know I've passed completeness check before I can apply for bridging open work permit? Yeah, so on your acknowledgement of receipt, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's going to be a section that says like you can now apply to bridging open work permit, right? Or you're now eligible for bridging open work permit, but it's on the acknowledgement of receipt for your Express Entry profile. It's going to tell you at the very bottom. Yeah, R10 is the look at it actually. This is the thing with R referring to the Immigration and Refugee Regulations as opposed to the Act. It was A10 Act, R10 we're talking about regulations, but R10 is the completeness check, right? So applications and R10, here we go. So an application under these regulations shall be in writing using the forms provided, signed by the applicant, include all information required by the regulations as well as other evidence required by the Act. Right, be accompanied by evidence and payment and fee, accompanying spouse, right, identify and blah, blah, blah. So here, talking about completeness checks. If your application is rejected on R10, or if it passed R10, it means that it passed the completeness check, it passed eligibility. So yeah, this is really what they mean by R10. And for those of you who are in the pool or about to submit an application, read this like super carefully, A to Z, Z to A, ZB, BA, like just like read this like super, super detailed. This is where everything talks about. Thank you, Cedric. My pleasure. And Leo says, is eligibility the first check? PRCC. Yeah, it's always the first check. So someone's going to look at it, go through it very quickly, make sure that you have all of the important documents in your application, and make sure that everything is included, right? All the basic stuff, but it can still be rejected later on, right? When someone sits down and actually goes in detail to look at your main duties and your jobs, it can still get all right, guys. Well, listen, I think it's like the second or third time that I've answered all the questions. Oh, another question. What's going on? It says, can I submit bridging open work application and simultaneously submit an open work application for my wife? good question, right? So, for your wife to submit an application, she would need to be LMIA exempt. And we can go take a look here at the exemptions for LMIAs. Brings us to this page here. We're going to go down here and we're going to look at spouse. So we have spouse of skilled workers. This is how people get their work permits, for spouse of students, dependent children, and then we have, I think there's one here for spouse of, oh, this is for the sponsorships, 825, family member of above. Why spouse this doesn't apply, this didn't apply, low skilled worker, for eligibility passed. So a lot, yeah, like a lot of these, when you talk about spousal applications and whatnot, it'll say like, the spouse needs to have a work permit and whatnot. And a lot of these you can submit at the same time, but do with the bridging open work permit eligibility and the spouse eligibility. Take a closer look here. There we go. So this is the bridging open work permit for certain economic class applications, so the A75, right? And then document. So this is what they want. So we talked about this general eligibility, right? So this is a little bit more detailed. These are now into the actual operating instructions. And if we put spouse or common law partner. So see public policy for conditions that needs to be met by the holder of the bridging permit for their spouse. This is referring back to C41. C41 is like what you would need for a spouse, right, of a skilled worker. Like this is what the post-graduation work permit gets it, right? So your spouse, so you have to have a valid work permit, be authorized to work in Canada, work in a high skilled knock. So you could submit it at the same time, right? Like you don't have to submit yours and wait 160 days and then submit hers. A lot of these applications can be submitted at the same time. And what's going to happen is if you're eligible, boom, they're going to give you a work permit. They're going to look at their application and see whether or not now you're eligible, and then grant it at the same time. But yeah, so definitely take a look at these requirements here to see whether or not you meet this. Most importantly, whether or not you work in a tier 01 or 2 or 3, and then see whether or not you're eligible to submit it. So there we go, guys. Whew, another live Q&A. I'll see you guys next Thursday. Bring me all your questions. A lot of tough questions today, and I couldn't answer all of them off the top of my head, but I really tried to help you as much as possible to kind of get kickstarted. And again, express entry, letters of experience, so important. Letters of reference, so important. Completeness check, super important. And just to conclude here, guys, we are whole immigration law. Oh, what? we are whole immigration law. So take a look at our website if you'd like to chat with us, and see you guys on next